Discovering Seekonk History. I'm Kristen Pine, and with me here today is Dave and Eleanor. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Eleanor is returning from Jacob Hill Farm with a nice presentation. This is phase 2. I see you've brought some items to discuss with us today. Hopefully we get to those. And why don't we pick up with our last picture?
I think where we left off last time was I wanted to show you a couple of our fireplaces, because that kind of goes back to when the original building was built, because it has the original fireplaces, and this is the cooking fireplace. Yes. Before I get going, because I know our time goes really rapid.
Very fast, yes.
Right. I do want to mention, I don't know if, because a couple of these shows were in multiple parts, so anyone could go, if you miss this episode and you want to, or if you missed the last episode and you're seeing this today and you wanted to get the history before, I don't know if you ever mentioned that you can get these all on demand.
Yes.
On, what is it, TV9 cable Seekonk?
Right, TV9 Seekonk on demand.
Right.
And then
.com on demand, and then you go to on demand, and then on the side it lists all the different things, and you just go to Discover Seekonk History, and then on the first line, and then all the episodes will come up.
Right, and David,
so
you had said they come up by date, possibly?
Yes.
All right, so...
Earliest one first.
Exactly, and you would normally just pick, if you were watching the most recent show, you would want the one prior, you know, to go by date-wise. Right.
Okay, so then speaking of the fireplaces, this is actually a photo which I have above the mantle in the, we call it the gathering room, which is the original kitchen or keeping room. And it shows it's a colonial photo done by Wallace Nutting. He did photos and then colored them in, and he's well known for that. So it just kind of shows a colonial person cooking over the open fire. And so we can go to the next one. I always wanted to, okay, so here's the beehive oven, and they used to bake bread, and this is actually at the Jacob Hill Farm. This, you know, and then we can go to the next one, because we showed these at the last episode.
Have you ever baked bread in that?
I haven't, but what I did was I wanted to, and I can still. I took a class. This is actually a class at the Cogshell Farm in Bristol, Rhode Island. They have classes on hearth cooking. So I took a class, and actually we gathered up all the food, and then we cooked it, and we washed the dishes, and we paid for this class, believe it or not. We did get to eat, but it was interesting, to say the least. But this is what they did, is basically they make the fire, because I didn't know how it was done. You'd make a fire, and then you take the hot ambers, and you'd put them, like for baking, they'd put them in that beehive oven to heat it up, the bricks, the way that it's made. Because of the beehive, it has an even heat.
And it holds it.
And it holds the heat once you get it hot enough. Of course, there's no temperature control. It's all done by, you know, guesswork. But it can be done. And so this is how they do it here, too. That you see a piece of meat there on a string, and the way that they do it is they turn the meat, and because of the string, it kind of keeps going back and forth. while it cooks, so it cooks evenly. Do you see that?
Yes,
Drop
I do.
down.
Yeah.
And then a big pot of water getting heated up to wash the dishes, pots and pans afterwards. There's a Dutch oven way over on the left-hand side, and we actually, because we all worked together on this, cooked a pie in that Dutch oven. So what it is, you put the hot embers on the top and underneath, and it kind of cooks in that special pot. And then there's roasting the coffee beans right in the front, and we made coffee, and yeah, so it was interesting. But so I always wanted to try it, and it is possible to try, because we have the type of fireplace with the beehive oven to do it, but I haven't done it yet. But so we could go to the next slide, which now we can show some of the bedroom mantles. Now these mantles are one of a kind. Originally, when the building was built in 1722-23, just what you see, that little band around the outside of the fireplace, that's what it would be. And then when we got into the 1800s, there would be some ornamental molding that was kind of overlaid, with the mantles and all that, to make it kind of fancier and to kind of go with that period of time. I think we have some close-ups on some of the dental molding and the I think the next one shows what the corner. See the rope molding going down the side?
Yes.
That's very kind of one of a kind, and the dental molding across the top, it's pretty ornamented, from like the Victorian period had more ornaments. So all of the mantles are kind of one of a kind. So that's some of the detail on one of them. And I think the next one shows the center medallion there. See, you could see a little bit closer up. Okay, and so the next picture, so this was in the, that was the master bedroom. Now this is the nursery. So I don't know if you notice, I don't know if we have a close-up, but there's tiles that go around right inside of the,
now
can
that you
see
say it,
And
yes, I see it. Animals.
Right, and those tiles are really thick. I always wanted to take one down to RISD or something like that, so that they can kind of identify where those tiles came from. But we think that was done when the Grosvenors owned the property, when they redid everything. So like in 1915, they would have put them in. That would be the nursery.
Wow.
And there is some ornament on the mantle, but not a whole lot, because now this is the nursery. The other one was a master bedroom. And if you noticed, we went back to the mantle, in the keeping room, the cooking fireplace, that really didn't have much ornament at all, because that was more of a functional type of fireplace. So I think we can go on to the next one. The next one is one of my favorites, actually. This is in the most original room at the property, and this is what we call the club room. This was the men's smoking room, and it's all paneling, and I have quite a few photos of this. But if you noticed, see the original, which would go right like halfway between, you see the dental molding, that was the original mantle, or I guess the framing around the fireplace, and then the dental molding and the mantle was added on later, hand painted and hand carved. all that dental molding. I think we can go to the next one. In the same room, this is one of the corner posts. Now this is chestnut, a chestnut beam. That is actually one of the beams that's holding up the house. And that was left exposed. I guess when they found it, it was maybe covered over, but in 1915 when the Grosvenors did it, in fact there's a letter that goes from Mrs. Grosvenor to the people that we bought it from, because they had asked, you know, what are some of the things that you found at the property when she was still alive at that time in the 70s, 1970s. And she, in the letter, said, well, they found the chestnut beam, which in the middle, you can't really see it, but halfway down on that, in that picture, it was scribed the year that the building was built. And they always thought it was 1722, but we noticed behind the paneling there's another one. So, and then we found other things that kind of made it look like it was 1723 rather than 1722. So when I said 1722 last week, when the house, you know, the property originally, the Allens bought it, was, and then we have a sign that says 1723. There's a little bit of confusion there, right? But that's where they get it from. One of the things is that, you know, it's scribed in 1723, and that's behind the paneling. And the paneling is wainscot, and it's the antique wainscot, and you see the dental molding across the top.
Painted still too, correct?
Yep, painted in between the dental red. And we can go to the next one, a little close-up I think we have of that dental molding. And it's painted red because, you know, this was the men's smoking room, and they used to wear the red coats, which was actually, they call them pinks. So they have different terminology for, you know, the outfits that they wore. So, yeah, the men, a lot of red, they wore the red coats, you know, because when they were on the hunt, they wanted a bright color, so, you know, because there were people out hunting, actually hunting for deer and whatnot, right? And they didn't want to get shot, so I think that's where the red comes from. But that's a close-up of that. Okay, I think we can, oh, in the same room, go ahead, Dave. Yeah, it was, okay, so here we found the buzzer in this room, and we wondered, well, why would there be a buzzer that looks like an outside buzzer for, you know? So then I think the next we found this, which wasn't up at the time. It's a servant's call box, and you see the Grosvenor's name on it. So this goes back to when the Grosvenors redid the building, and they had servants. So you have the front door, the side door, the rear door, the living room, the den, which they called this the den, that room with the wainscot, and then a couple of the sleeping chambers, the nursery, you see Mrs. Grosvenor's room, and a couple of other sleeping chambers. See where it's white underneath, where it says, like, the front door, it's like a white disc?
Yes.
Those have actually been tripped. Down below to the last row to the right, it's all black, you don't see it, but what it is, that's what it would look like. Like, if none of them were tripped, it would all be black. Okay. And so it's glass, and it's reverse painting on glass. And then there's like a round hole, and behind that, there's like a little lever with that white disc that goes into place. So there were two of these, one in the kitchen area and one upstairs in the servants' quarters. And so if one of the rooms needed service, like Mrs. Grosvenor needed some assistance in her room, the box would make a sound like a buzzing, and we never had this connected. I tried with my husband, so that maybe, if I needed him, I could get him to come, but he didn't want to hook it up. I don't know why, but so it made a noise. The servant would come, and they would see the round white disc in underneath where
And
they
know where
needed
to
to go. Exactly. So that solved the mystery of the buzzer. So we found a couple of these, two of them, one which was all broken up, we couldn't rescue it, and then this one which was pretty much intact, and it was in the attic, and so we put it up so people can see it. And okay, so the next slide actually shows a piece of the china. We had a couple of pieces of china donated to us from Lydia Turner. She was pretty much, her and her husband were lifelong residents of Seekonk. After the Hunt Club in 1943, they were hired by the family that bought the property, the Taylors, and they were hired to come in and help her and her husband. And so one of the things, this is china from the Hunt Club, and so it wasn't needed anymore, so they got to keep it. They lived on property. They actually live in the carriage house, which is where Bill and I are now. And so they lived there, and they used the china. I don't know how many pieces we actually have, but that's a sugar bowl, a little plate, and then there's a bigger plate that shows, the motif is the hunt motif. You want to show the bigger, and I don't know if there's another one too. I think you only have, no. So this is a bigger plate, but there was an oval plate, and it was really nice. Her husband had passed away already by the time we owned the farm, and so when she came, she gave us, and she said, my husband used to eat spaghetti from the oval plate. I know, it was really sweet. Yeah. And so in any case, you could actually see it was red in some of because it had been used. I mean, from 1943, now this is 1990 already, so what, 50 years, right? That he had eaten spaghetti out of a bowl, so you can imagine. Well, we have a really good dishwasher. We need it for the end. It takes everything out. So we just ran it through one time, and it came out. Aww. Yeah, so we have that on display as well. We have all of the things that you see here.
Now, do you have on display any other pieces, or is that it for the china? Is that all that was available? This is it?
This is all that was remaining after 50 years, but you can imagine there must have been a lot of it. I think she said she may have given some other pieces away. Nobody ever thinks that it's important, because basically they were throwing it out, I think, after the Hunt Club. They had their own, china, so they didn't need the Hunt Club china. But so if there's any pieces out there, we'd love to have them to display, put on display.
Absolutely.
So we can go on to maybe what I should do is show the wringer one of the things that.
It's coming up in next slide.
Oh,
Next two
good.
slides.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
So, so then we'll move on to, I want to mention again that what we do is we've kind of set everything up so that, we have old photographs. Some of them we have here that we've shown and will show. This is the old sign from 1792, Calvin
Yes.
Jacob. That's when he came on, actually bought the property in 1792, and that's where the name came from at that time.
Right.
And the hay rake was one of the things that was left behind up in the attic, and that's a big rake. It's about, well, Dave, you took a picture of it. It's about 6 feet wide, and it's
Wow.
about.
Now, was that hooked on anything, a wagon or something to pull it, or was it, something else attachment on it that you can use it? I just was curious about that.
Yeah, I'm still curious about it too. It was actually broken. I repaired it myself. My husband didn't have to get involved this time. But yeah, I always wondered, it seems like it doesn't really have a hookup to anything. So I think maybe it was just to rake up loose hay. I don't know exactly how it works. So
Wow.
if anyone out there knows how something like this
Right.
would work, I'd be interested in knowing.
Right.
But we have this on display in the barn because it is so big. You can't really put it in a room because it's about 8 feet, a good 8 feet from the top of the rake down to the bottom of the handle. So it's up on one of the walls there. And then I guess you can advance it. I try to take whatever I found, like for instance, we were talking about the old windows in the 3 dormers across the top of the front
Yes.
building, the clubhouse. And this was one of the old original windows when it was done in 1915. So not 1722, but 1915. Because that's when they put the dormers in
Yes.
across the 3rd floor. And so so this is one of the original windows. So I put a mirror behind it. I use it as a decorative piece and have it on display. And you see a couple of other pieces there. I guess you have a close-up, do you?
Right, but that's interesting because you think you're looking through the window and you think you see the tables and chairs,
But it's really.
it's the reverse.
Yeah.
It's set up very nice.
Thank you. So here's a few other things, tools and whatnot, saws, an ice thing that they used to use
Grab
to
the ice.
grab the ice with. Yeah, I actually have an old ice box, but it wasn't on the property. It actually came from my mother's house, my parents' house, but I have it there. Those screws, I think those were part of the ice thing, and
Yeah.
clamps. There's a clamp and some laundry implements. Oh, and then I guess the next one is the wringer, and this actually was one of, and it's heavy. So maybe we could do a close-up of the actual thing. I don't want to scratch the table, but this was in, I don't know if we're showing, well,
Yep,
there's a
you're showing
close-up
it's-
there. Oh,
yep.
good. This was in the basement of the clubhouse. I think they did their laundry in the basement there. There was, but I know, we even, at my parents' house when I was little, we used one of these because we had a really old, I'm older than you by a lot. So, so this, you do, it was open wash machine, open on the top, and then this kind of hooked up into it. And then when you got finished washing in this big round thing, you'd put the laundry through and it squeezes out the, you know, the laundry, and then you'd go and hang it up, you know.
Right.
No dryers needed. And I think the clothes actually lasted longer because they weren't constantly dried. But this, yeah, it's a little bit broken, but it's nice to have.
Very neat. And that was in the basement, you said?
It was in the basement of the clubhouse. Yeah, we call the front building the clubhouse, and the back building, which was built by the Hunt Club, the White Barn, because it was a white barn when it was built. And the interesting thing is, I don't know if we have any pictures of the barn, but when it was built, white barns in those days was a symbol of an affluent person. And because, you know, there's a lot of red barns around.
That was the comment I was going to make. Normally you think a red barn.
Right. Well, that's more of like a farm, you know, because the red paint was, it cost less than the white paint. Now it's just the opposite. If you want red paint, like we have
gotta pay.
Right, yeah. I bought some red paint. It's Ralph Lauren red paint, and to paint a room, and it was yeah, a lot more than white.
Yeah.
Good old white paint, whitewash, right? So it's funny how things change.
Absolutely.
So I think we have a picture of some of the programs. I actually have the real McCoy here, the real programs.
Great. We have just a little bit of time left, so go right over
wow,
those.
our time goes by
I
so
know.
quickly. Dave, do you have something? I think maybe we'll just show the programs this time, and if we want to, maybe the third program, maybe I won't delay it so long, but we'll talk about the people that were actually at the Hunt Club, because the box holders and all that
Are they listed in there?
Yeah. Yeah,
Really?
the Vanderbilts, the Firestone.
Right, I have a separate slide, a
There's a
separate slide of
slide that-
itemizing who some of those.
Wonderful. All
Yeah,
right, well, we'll
kind of
folks
pick
were.
that up next show. That'll be
Who's
wonderful.
Who in America.
Who's who,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Oh,
We
thank
hope you
you.
enjoyed the show, and that you tune in for our next one and find out all the juicy gossip of who's been there and what may have happened. Thank you again, and would you like to say anything before we end?
We have a meeting coming up. I don't know when this is going to air, but you know, the whole idea is we want to get people that are interested in history, and there's a meeting on the 20th of March.
That's right, at the town hall, and it is for the Seekonk Historic Commission.
And we have a speaker
We do
from
have
Boston.
a special speaker from Boston that Eleanor got to come visit with us. And it's going to be great. And this is a few other towns are coming in too, correct?
Yes.
So we have Swansea, Somerset.
Yes. I think maybe Dayton.
Okay.
I'm not sure. And of course our people,
Yes.
and you're all
All right,
invited.
so that is an open meeting. Anybody can join. So we hope you will. All right, thank you very much. Good night. Good.
That's it. Did we hit the mark? Oh, good. Oh.